Hi, my name is Doreen. I'm Ty Bechel's mother. Well, I was a young mother. I was 18 when I had him. I was married to his dad for 4 years and we got divorced. He took it really hard when his dad left. He moved in with his dad when he was 8 years old. He mostly stayed with his grandmother, and she was pretty good on raising him. Thinking I am my good fortune. 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 These soft days on my head will finally dance along to melodies we sing inside our head all day. They'll stay with us till they see the light. Till then I'll give what I got, even if it's not special, 'cause I'll learn what I'm not. When I'm out of perspective, I'll find I've fallen at the very last second, but my body makes it hard to leave a lasting impression.
Today I am a recovering drug and alcohol addict, and I just try to be the best person that I can be and try to get back to the community the best way that I can.
I also run a not-for-profit in Madison County called Amade. Amade is an Italian verb for love. And the reason why I chose verb, because as most of you know, verb is action words, and action is what moves us forward. I can sit up here all day and complain about all my woes and all my problems, but if I'm not putting forth action to try to make something better in my life and the people surrounding me, all I'm doing is complaining.
I'm Kyle's mother.
Hi, how are you? Thank you guys so much for coming and participating. It means a lot. Yes, thank you.
I love to write. That's one thing that I really love to do. And before I went to my downward spiral and got really heavily addicted on the drugs and alcohol, I was scared to share my stuff that I wrote. After this all happened and transpired, I realized I only lived once. And going through my near-death experience, I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to put it out there. I was going to release a fiction title first, but then I decided to do heroin rising.
Also an author. I have published an autobiography, and I'm getting ready to release 2 or 3 fiction pieces. I'm working on a comic book.
So I guess you've had a lot of speaking engagements after your first.
It's been really busy,
Yeah.
and you know, it's like I'm not an expert really in anything, but I love to share my story.
But don't you think that's why people connect with you?
I think so. Like in the book, I blended in my fiction style with kind of autobiography, and I wanted to try to pull people in, and it's happened. People pull in like, oh my God, I was crying. Yeah, when I was about 15 years old, my friends were all smoking weed, and I knew my uncles and family members were smoking here and there, and I was really curious.
And I was afraid to smoke in front of them because they'd make fun of people for smoking it, throwing up, coughing. Mainly my guy friends. Of all people, I ended up stealing it from my grandmother.
One day when I knew she wasn't there, I went there and I found it in her little hiding spot, and I took it and I went to my mom's. It was very surreal and strange. I spent that night when my mom, she got off work late, and I think she went out with some friends at her house by myself, and I had all the lights off, and I was watching this little black and white TV.
His dad kicked him out of the house and brought him to me.
Me and my dad had this rocky relationship, and we just weren't getting along. So I wasn't happy that I was there. I wasn't really playing sports like I normally would, and I decided, you know, that it was time to go.
So I had a $100 bank account from my grandmother. So my dad wasn't gonna pay anything. My mom was on welfare. She made about 10, 12 grand a year cutting hair. She had my younger brother. She was on food stamps.
So I went and got a job at IHOP.
Now, being 16, working with 22, 23, 24-year-olds, they were all smoking pot and drinking.
And then, you know, I started hanging out with them. We went to that house party that night out in Bethalto at the Chateaus.
So I eventually go to a house party and I drink my first beer and I don't like it.
He's like, you know what, I got something else. And we went to the kitchen and he gave me a whiskey and Sprite, and I drank it and I liked it. It kind of opened me up, and I was able to talk to the girls that were there that were a little bit older, and I started having fun, so I fell in love with that like I did with marijuana.
I knew a guy who managed one of the liquor stores in town. I paid him a certain amount of money, I'd walk out of that liquor store with 3 times what I gave him.
And I don't want to say too much about it, but the dad's 2 years after he lost his daughter, and he hasn't moved on.
Right.
He's actually turned to alcohol
Okay.
to try to comfort himself, and it's tore his family apart.
Right.
So, and there's some amends made from the kid who gave her the drugs and contributed to her death.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got to come to the dad, and he got clean and sober and says, "All right, I'm very sorry."
Right.
So there's a huge dialogue
Oh,
there
I bet.
where
That's intense.
dad's like, "Oh yeah, you love her? Well, let me tell you how much I love my daughter." We're gonna get ready to go through this one time, and we'll go through it more tomorrow. But try to follow the script the best.
Why are you like this, Ty?
Why? It's a passion that I have, because I do want to see people happy, regardless of what it is. I don't want to see you. I think that's one reason why we kind of hit it off
Right.
with the play and everything, and just the genuine feeling. Like I don't want you to feel that pain. Nobody needs to feel that pain.
And I think, like, when you asked, and I think especially when you said, you know, I've called everybody and nobody will do this. I hate it when people just are, when they say, no, you can't do that. That's not going to work. I mean, because that's happened to me when I started my business
Right.
16 years ago when I was a steel worker. And I said I was going to start my own business. Oh, you can't do that. That'll never make it. That'll never. I'm like, oh, got to prove them wrong.
That's what happened with that play. 2 times, getting ready to do a third. It's insane. And
That's awesome.
And I think because people were like, I started listening to people talk. I started listening to family members that lost their kids. I'm like, well, how can we convey that side of the story
Sure.
too?
Right.
And it's pretty interesting. I got the chills writing it, and that's when I know, when I'm creating, then I know that I'm on the right track.
I think of you all the time because there's a young girl, she's a friend on my Facebook page, and she worked for me for a brief amount of time, and her brother just died of heroin. And I mean, some of her posts are just gut-wrenching. I mean, she drives past that house, and why are those people still in there, and what's being done? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just can't imagine what she's going through.
And it's like when young kids get on it, I'm like, why?
Right.
And that was my worry, because I seen the trend right when I was getting clean, so when I was finally getting ready to make that decision, I saw it just getting younger and younger.
Right. And I guess I just don't understand, especially because there's so much awareness, there's so much out there that why would you even try?
I still have that thought. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I was talking to the elderly couple that was here, and I said I wouldn't do that, but it was one of those, I haven't done that yet.
Right.
I never thought I would, but I did, because it was cheaper and it was more readily available. But once that drug gets its claws in you, it is so hard to escape. Oh man, you know, I liked her, and my buddy wanted to hook us up because he knew I kind of liked her. And you know, I was 17, so I was a late bloomer. All my buddies have already lost their virginity at 14, 15 years old. So he was trying to entice the relationship. He'd pass notes for us, and he kind of set it up. And her and I, we hung out one night, and he came with us because I was nervous. I didn't know what to do. I didn't really know how to talk to her. After we went to this little arcade, we went back to my house. You know, me and the girl I lost my virginity to, I was super jealous, and I was constantly wanting to know what she was doing, when she was doing it. So we split up and we went our separate ways. I started talking to this other girl, and we hit it off quite a bit, and we hung out all the time. I started hanging out with her more, my buddies less, and they were getting pissed that I wasn't hanging with them.
I'm like, you know, I'll hang out with you guys. And I started cheating on her, and I started getting mad that she would go out. I was like, no, you gotta stay home.
I loved him. I tried to understand why. I mean, you know, he was just a regular teenager, stubborn, didn't want to take out the trash or anything like that.
I was working. I felt like I was an adult, even though I wasn't paying any bills or anything. I'd come and go as I pleased. I just had a real bad attitude.
And I was not ready for him because he was just a handful.
I ended up moving out of my mom's because we just weren't getting along. We weren't getting along at all. So my cousin and I got an apartment, and I really felt like an adult. I really did. My cousin and I decided to move, so the renting was up, she was moving on, I needed a place to go, and a guy that I worked with, we decided to get an apartment. And we got the apartment, things were great at first. We were partying all the time, and he was cool with everything, and things went south because partying got a little bit out of control. I ended up leaving because the lease was up. I was running out of money. I had the car I was financing. I had the credit cards that I was trying to pay. I was taking cash advances out on. I was living way outside of my means. I couldn't afford the rent that we had anymore. I just couldn't. Back at my dad's, things are good. My dad and I are going to the bars together, playing darts, drinking quite a bit. It was good. We got along for a little bit, but you know, that only lasted so long.
I guess I was stupid because I really didn't know what the signs were or why he was so angry all the time. And he always blamed it on, you know, me or his dad, which is normal for a teenager.
I got my wisdom teeth pulled, and I was still talking to the girl that I was dating after the girl that I lost my virginity to. She actually drove me from the dentist's office back to my dad's house, and I remember taking the Vicodin for the first time. 15 minutes after I took it, it was a feeling that I'd never felt before, and I was really, really attracted to it right then and there. I just got back from North Carolina. My cousin just got married. I came to my uncle's house after the flight, just, you know, I had some time to kill. I still had a couple days off from work. I was talking to him outside of his house, and his neighbor, a girl, comes out, and he's like, "Hey, come here." And she was gorgeous, you know what I mean? She was just like one of those gorgeous. I'm like, oh man. And I usually was okay talking to girls because most of the time I was high on the pills, or drinking is when I would be really good at talking. So I thought. She comes up and I really didn't know what to say. And I kind of went on. I'm like, all right, see, I gotta go.
So when I first met him, he pulled up next to my house, and immediately he just caught my eye. My sister knew him through a family member And I said, hey, who is that? And immediately she's seen him. And then that same night, she had called him and he came to my house. It was exciting. It was new. People say that they believe in love at first sight, and I think that instantly happened with us. We did hit a lot of bumps in the road as far as our relationship starting off, probably about 6 months into it, but definitely love at first sight. He had his wisdom teeth pulled. He started taking some pain medication, and then with the pain medication, I've seen changes as far as personality, grouchy, easily agitated. And so when that started arising, we kind of started pulling apart. It kind of just kept growing. From there, it kept escalating.
I start buying 2 or 3 here and there. We network with people, and that's exactly what I was doing. I was pretty business smart. I take the Vicodin, I find out that you can buy it, and it leads me to start buying 2 to 3 full scripts per month. I buy 2 scripts from one guy that this guy was selling his prescription to get money for crack cocaine and alcohol. And I got one from a grandmother who had a gambling problem. She was a grandma. I'd walk in and buy from her. She'd be crocheting.
Things are going good. You know, I'm making good money. I'm in college. And things, you know, I think I got everything under control. And you'll hear some people say, I'm a functioning alcoholic or I'm a functioning addict. And things were really getting out of control. I was spending a lot of money on it. I had to have it to go to work. I had to have it to function. So I thought I had everything figured out, but yet I'm staying at my dad's. I'm not paying any bills. I'm falling behind on my car payments. Christine and I end up breaking up. I stay with the younger girl, and we end up working together at this place, this lawn fertilization company out in St. Clair County. And we start doing OxyContin. And since we're working together, she's making her money, I'm making my money. That's all we're doing. We're crushing up OxyContin, we're snorting it. And that was a whole nother level from what I was used to with the Vicodin, because I really, really like the Vicodin. But that OxyContin, that's crazy how it takes you from one high to a high that's similar, but just a little bit more powerful. I was doing it all the time, and I ended up losing my job there.
Together nonstop for pretty much the first 6 months. My sister had passed away, so that was another bump that had hit. He lost his grandma.
When I lost my grandmother, she raised me for about 5-6 years. And probably the most influential time in my life. And recently I just found out that she had cancer. I didn't know she had cancer back then. But I found out she gave her battle up to cancer, and she wanted to die at home with her family. She didn't want to go to the hospital, and it was hard. You know, I come from a large family. She was our glue, and when she raised me, she's always go for it. Always push yourself. You can always do it. Don't give up. Don't give up. And when I saw her give up, and I saw her frail body in that bed, it was hard. It was hard to see my grandmother that I really, really cared about and I really, really respected go. She just left. She was no longer here. And I felt like I lost a best friend that day. I really did. Two days after Grandma passed away, Christina called me.
She calls me on the phone and says, hey, I'm pregnant.
She knew the pain of losing someone close because her and her sister were really, really close. And she was like, you know, I'm sorry. But then she was like, she called for a reason to tell me that we were going to have a baby. And I knew right then and there I wasn't prepared on so many levels, from the drug addiction to being immature.
Again, I made it her fault because that's how big of a coward I was. I wanted to make it her fault. Like, as soon as I said it's not mine, she's like, are you kidding me? She started crying and she hung up the phone. And I didn't talk to her for the whole 9 months. She was pregnant. She called me on the day that she was set to be induced.
Along came our daughter Dory. Of course, you know, when you have drugs and stuff involved in your relationship and then add a baby to it, it kind of makes for a hot mess.
I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to mature. When I had the opportunity, you know, I wanted to try to be better. I wanted to try to be a good father. And her whole pregnancy with our daughter, the whole 9 months, she was on her own.
Doctor decides he is going to go ahead and go through with inducing her. I'm like, okay. I go get my stuff, take a shower. I go visit the girl that I'm dating. She's crying, saying, I can't do this. You're getting ready to have a baby with another woman. We got to break up. I'm like, oh, okay. I go back to the hospital, and I have some Vicodin. I'm trying to, I'm just going to take a little bit, because at this point I'm getting sick. I'm sweating when I'm not taking it. My stomach hurts. I'm getting very nauseous. My joints hurt. And I need it to work for me to feel my normal.
I was excited that my daughter was going to be here, and I was trying not to do the drugs. I was trying not to take the pills, and I couldn't even make the day through the birth of my daughter. And I left. You know, because they decided to keep her, so I left to go get her stuff and get cleaned up and all that. And I had to go get a score. That's what we did. We went in and I was high during the delivery. It was the most memorable moment of my life, for good and for bad.
She comes out crying, and I'm holding her. See, with my daughters, I had an instant connection. I was like, I'm going to change. I'm going to change. I'm going to do good.
Him and Chrissy had Dory, which was their first child, is when I started to find out about his addictions to pain medications, and then it just kept escalating to more, I guess, because his attitude and his ways of doing things just changed.
You know, it's hard to kind of look back on that because of the way I treated people. I was very selfish. Put people through a lot of torment, a lot of emotional distress.
And I figured, hey, a new job, a new atmosphere would be good. I can still kind of do the drugs because everybody's doing them, and I won't have to feel so guilty. It was different, and I didn't really like spending all that time on the phone, so the transition was a little bit difficult, and I just felt even more miserable, and the drugs were, at this point, starting to lose their effect on me, numbing out everything that was going on. I really had no choice at that time. I'm like, I can't do this. You know, I'm going to tough it out, and I'm going to go to my room, and it was the worst experience that I've ever had, because up until this point, I was pretty much high every day.
Well, I started doing cocaine with my opiates. I eventually moved to Oxycontin. That was my first time. I remember them saying, here, do it. They took the coating off. This is when you can take the coating off the Oxycontin. I crushed it up and you could snort it. They're like, here, you should do it. I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. I already knew. I moved from Vicodin to Percocets. I already knew how much I loved that. I'm like, I don't know if I should do that. I go do it. I snort it. And I start doing it all the time. And that's how I eventually met the MC.
At the cell phone store, I met a guy who was part of a motorcycle club, and I didn't really know where to find any oxys outside of the people I was trying to stay away from, so I went and reached out to him, and He said he couldn't find anything right away, but he'll call me. And I think he called me 2 or 3 days later.
And there's some very, very cool motorcycle clubs out there that are very generous, that are very kind, that treat our community very, very nicely. This was the exact opposite. This motorcycle club was known for running meth and cocaine.
Well, when he called me and said he had Oxy, I didn't realize that he was wanting me to get rid of them for him. And he kind of bullied his way into the whole situation, saying, nah, you're going to go ahead and do this. We started hanging out and basically doing the Oxycontins together, and his thing was cocaine, so we started mixing the two, and we would just do a whole bunch all the time. I ended up somehow going back to the cell phone store and managing one of their locations. How is beyond me, but I do. Getting Oxycontin dropped off to me at work, doing cocaine with it at work. I can't even really function without this stuff, and half the time I'm in my office withdrawing, miserable, door closed, telling the sales associates to take care of what they got to because I can't do anything. I didn't make a deposit for a very long time, probably about 2 weeks. A majority of the deposit I had, I carried it on me, but I was doing IOUs. One night I went out, I remember I was in downtown Wood River, and I went to the bar because I was trying to find cocaine, because at this point I wasn't talking to the biker because he just scared me with his attitude and what he was involved in. So I go down there and I hear a guy saying he needs money for gas. I'm like, oh, I can throw you $5 for gas. I went in there and I found some cocaine, and last I remember I was dancing on the floor with a girl, and that was it. I woke up at my mom's house on her couch and freaked out.
I was nervous that I was going to get arrested because the owners that were so great to me at the cell phone store decided to let the detective investigate.
I was terrified. I wanted to run. I reached out to a buddy that lived in Arizona, and he said, you can come down here if you want.
So I throw everything in the car, and I was like, where are you going? I was like, I gotta get out of here. I've never been arrested. I never even had a speeding ticket up to this point.
Yeah, I didn't make it to Arizona. And the biker guy was calling me constantly. The cell phone store calling me. My mom was calling me. And I was shacked up in this hotel. I went through the whole spiel. My body aching, vomiting, diarrhea, all the 9 yards. And then, of course, what naturally happens is you start feeling just a little bit better. You're like, okay, I got this. The biker guy called me, left me a whole bunch of messages, got meaner and meaner as each one was left. But when I called him, he was fine, and I said, hey, you got anything? He's like, yep. And I went out there. I drove almost 4 hours, and I felt like that 4 hours took forever, and that's right where I went, and I was right back on that rodeo of using again.
But he had come in one day, he was living with me at the time because Chrissy kind of had enough of it, and he was sitting there, and I didn't know, but his eyeballs started to roll back into his head, and like he was really, really high. And I took him to the hospital, and that's when I found out when he first started doing heroin, which was really hard.
The biker guy, he ends up getting picked up by the FBI. I ended up running into my sister and her friends, and they're doing heroin. I run into another guy, and the heroin just was there. It was cheaper, it was easier to access. The high was probably about 10 to 20 times more potent. And I started stealing from my family. I started lying to my family. My closest family members that I love dearly, to this day, couldn't do anything. I was lying. Was completely taking advantage of them. And anything I ran into, I treated them horribly. There was nothing they can do. They tried to throw me a life raft. I didn't want it.
So, after a while, I just couldn't take him anymore because he was stealing and he'd stole all my jewelry and sold it, and just things just started coming up missing. And you know, I have a younger son. He's 26 now, but at the time he was living with me and he started stealing his stuff.
We did go through some rough times when years back he was on some hardcore drugs, and he was stealing and he was doing things that he would never do, you know, lost good jobs. And finally it just took me one day to, fed up, you know, he wrote bad checks in my name and stole my bow. I'm a big bow hunter. And I was just fed up with it, man, so I called the cops and pressed charges, and that's what saved his life. And he actually went to jail the night before a fight. I was on my home from weigh-ins. He was high at the house. Mom was driving down the street crying. Said she didn't want him there. I said, "You sure?" She goes, "Yeah." So, you know, I took a matter of my own hands.
I stole my brother's bow. He called the police. I ran to detox. I was in Hartford. I just left the house from using it. He was calling me over and over and over. I knew what he was calling for. He called me, said he called the police. I was like, "But I can get it out at a pawn. I can get it out at a pawn." And he's like, "No, it's too late. I've already called them. They're already down there." And that led me to Madison County Drug Court. And from going to Madison County Drug Court, I met Judge Nat. I met the probation officer, Mr. White.
Brandon, my younger son, he was the one that called the police for me because I couldn't call the police on him. I'm his mother, and I didn't want him to be in jail, but that's where he needed to be. So he went to jail a few times. He went to rehab a few times.
With the court system, probation officer, me, his mom, everybody pretty much had just kind of washed our hands.
They were fair, very firm. Judge Knapp even told me I looked like shit one day in court because I was using heavily. And I'm like, judges aren't supposed to say that stuff, but judges can practically say what they want, especially if they're trying to help you save your life. And I met my counselor. The first counselor I had was kind of soft, so I manipulated him right off the bat. But they got me with this guy who was a U.S. Air Force retiree. He wasn't having it. He had me pegged right then and there. These guys helped out a lot, even though I didn't get straight right away. I went to rehab once for 28 days, and they gave me another shot to go to rehab for 45 days. And I came home and I was doing really good, and I ended up messing up for like 2 weeks. And that's what led me to my sober date. I was laying on my mom's couch, and the guy that I was using with, my mom said he needs to go. And she told me, "You gotta go. You can't be here when I get off." My girlfriend then, fiance today, had nothing to do with me. She wasn't letting me see the kids. My family didn't want me around. I was a hanger-on, constantly trying to get money, and they knew what it was for. I was 170 pounds. Today, I'm 230. My mom left. My probation officer called and said, "Hey, why weren't you at group?" It's because I didn't want to go, and he knew it. Because I already ended up in Kettler twice for 2 failed suicide attempts. And my mom left for work. He said, "Fine, you turn yourself in when you get back from detox." I'm like, "Fine, you got it." And I was alone in the house, and it was quiet. All I could hear was a ceiling fan. I dropped to my knees, looked outside my mom's window. I could see the tree, blue sky, and the branches just kind of blowing in the wind. To me, that was like freedom right then and there. I was like, free isn't to be able to work and make a bunch of money. Free is just to be me without all this negative consequences. I just want to be free. And I just started praying and crying, saying, "Help me. If there's anything that you can do, help me or take me out of this world." And the obsession to use was gone. It was the weirdest thing. It was gone. I went to detox. The physical withdrawals are still there. I turned myself in. I pressed that buzzer at the Madison County jail. Officer came and got me. I was there for 2 weeks. They took me in front of the judge and my probation officer and the attorneys and said, "You got 3 options. Go to Arch House, put you on termination, which is they'll see where I'm at in 30 days. I have to go to like 5 12-step recovery meetings a week. Or I can go to a place called CRC, which I was familiar with because I was researching places because I kind of knew I had to get away. I didn't even hesitate. I said, no, I want to go to CRC.
He was a completely different person, and it was just like at the snap of a finger. One day he woke up and he didn't want to be who he was. He went above and beyond at CRC where he was. He ran the food bank. He fully quit smoking himself. eating healthy, it was just like a whole new person. So I think that turning point was when he just kind of said, okay, I'm done.
That really turned his life around. It turned it around, and they gave him all these responsibilities. And Ty's a hard worker, and he loves to be in charge. So he makes a good manager, and they let him manage the whole place, you know. And it wasn't until then that everything started getting better. And he was in there for about 8 months. It was the best thing that happened to him.
And I just got heavily involved with volunteering with their food bank, running their kitchen, going to the grocery store and shopping for all the residents, which could vary from 9 to 16, females and males. Christina, my girlfriend then, fiance today, started coming up, bringing the kids. My mom would come up and see me on the weekends. I'd go home, and I just got deep down real honest. I started working what in recovery we call a program. I started getting in touch with a God that I could understand. One that I thought abandoned me a long time ago.
And they have 4 kids now, so he's a really good dad. After he started doing all these things at CRC, everybody respected him.
And as soon as he came in at CRC, it felt like I haven't seen my father in like 2 years. So I ran to him.
Get you. Keep going. Yeah, let's wait for mommy. There. Watch out, your shoes are tight.
Better than ever. We both look up to each other, and he pushes me. He's he'll text me every day. And I remember when I was getting ready for Bellator, man, every morning I woke up before going to the gym, I had a motivational quote from him sent to me. He used to look up to me, now I look up to him. You know, he started a nonprofit program. He's been clean and sober for a long time now. He wrote a book, now he's writing a second book. He's had multiple plays on drug awareness.
He doesn't know how proud I am because I am really proud. I mean, he may think that, you know, I nag and whatever, but that's just my job, I guess. I'm his mom. And I really appreciate him because I think it's a wonderful thing. We need more people like that out there. Because there's a lot of people in trouble. There's a lot of people in trouble. And he's done a good thing. I am so proud of him and I love him. That's what I would tell him. Keep it up.
With the not-for-profit that I found, trying to encourage people in early recovery and their families and people in the community that we're still human. We still have purpose. A lot of us are trying to escape our hell every minute of every day. And what it takes for some and what it took for me was a little tough love. For me, it did. I didn't do it with any opiate replacement drugs like some people do. That doesn't make anybody weak or anything. I'm not bashing that. But I had to do it the hard way. 1, because drug court wouldn't let me take them. 2, I knew I had to tough it out because I knew there was an experience that I could experience in my life that's bigger than myself. And I wanted to have the cleanest body and the cleanest mind and the healthiest thoughts that I can have. And I wanted to help whoever I could. So when I got the idea for the not-for-profit, I tried reaching out to other people in the recovery community.
So as far as like the whole Amari thing, he kind of came up with this idea, which is great. I fully support him in his ideas. I just knew that he would have a hard time pushing this idea. Being a recovering addict, many people just shut the doors at your face all the time.
And I had all these great ideas. Nobody would talk to me. Nobody would talk to me. So I was like, you know what? I guess I'll do it on my own.
It was kind of a collaborative thing for the most part for us for a while. He does most of it by himself. and now he's got a few more people on the board, which helps tremendously. We're there with him full force, supporting him in everything that he does. I love the person who he is. He's genuine, keep true to himself. He's a great person, father, husband, brother, and son. So definitely very proud of him.